Hi, my name's Laura Tomlinson. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there with you guys today, but Gillian's asked me to give a little bit of a synopsis on progressing young horses for longevity and how do we produce our horses with success in mind, but also that they can last long term and fulfill their job as a happy athlete for a long time. Generically, first of all, because obviously this is a topic I could talk about for hours, and there's hundreds of things I could probably think of, but some of the real important fundamentals of producing horses and keeping a happy athlete long term is variety in their day and their weekly workload. Obviously a young horse will work less hard and less regularly in the week, or less often in the week as an advanced horse, but it's still really important that a young horse and an advanced horse alike have variety. So we don't just work them in the school, we hack out, we turn out, we lunge, we do pole work, we do water treadmill work, and we have an all-weather gallop track. So plenty of fitness is done on there as well, also for the advanced horses at Grand Prix level. So variety is super important for their minds and their physique, their athleticism. Another thing that is vital is that you've got a really good combo of vet, farrier and physio, and that they communicate well together. I think that's often underestimated. Obviously, we all think we have a good farrier or a good vet or a good physio, but making sure that they communicate well together, I think, is super important. And that as a rider, you're always feeding back to those three sort of groups, those areas, to make sure that all bases are being covered and that you're seeing a horse very holistically. Another thing that's important is, and that I'm always tinkering with, and I'd say I have probably a real combination of quite modern and scientific approach, but also quite old school approach, is the feeding. I'm always tinkering with the feed according to how much my horses are in work, what kind of horse I have, from muscle tone to sort of fitness and how sharp they are and all of that, whether they're competing soon. I weigh them regularly. Every Wednesday our horses get weighed, so I'm always tinkering with what I think the horse needs, not just from a nutrient point of view, but also energy-wise. I think that's also really important, and to adjust according to what your horse is doing, and also the time of year. Are they having more grass? Are they having more hay? Because there's less grass. Things like that are really important. And so these are just, general management side of things. Magnetic rug I find is really helpful for my horses. Some horses respond better before work. Some horses respond better to having the recovery setting later on in the afternoon after work. All my horses come out at least twice a day, so even if they're working in the morning, they'll come out in the afternoon to do one of the various other things that we do with them, from poles to lunge to treadmill to hack. And then, weather permitting, at the moment, this time of year, more tricky, but most of the year they will also have turnout on top of that. So that's also really important to me. And then the variety of the week, as I've said, is also just really important for young horses, and reading your horse, especially with young horses. They might be working really well one week, and the next week you fall into a bit of a dip and you wonder why was he so good last week? Why is he so difficult this week? They're always trying to tell us something. So for me, something that my dad always said is listen to your horse. If they're suddenly behaving differently to how they have done before, there is a reason. It's our job to try and figure it out. That's not to say making excuses for bad behavior, but generally behavior is their way of communicating, and I think it's so important. Sometimes a horse is going really well, they get a little bit tired, you have to respond to that. If a horse has worked really well the day before and the following day he comes out tired, don't expect the same thing as he gave you the day before. Adapt. And I think producing young horses is all about letting the horse dictate the pace at which you're going at. That's really a really important thing. And that way the horse stays happy to work for you, wants to do its job because it's praised and rewarded with a rest appropriately. And I think that's the key. Often when we're working a horse and we're focusing so much on what we're doing, you suddenly look at your watch and you realize that maybe you haven't given them a break for the last 5 to 7 minutes. That's way too long. A young horse needs regular breaks. Even if you're having a moment where you're trying to work through something, sometimes dropping the reins for a moment and giving a horse a break and a chance to respond is much more helpful than trying to battle through. So I think regular breaks, listening to your horse's body, listening to how the horse is feeling and responding appropriately is really important in the production of a young horse, whether it's thinking about the horse's mind and how you're producing the horse as a happy, positive person, and also their ability to respond physically correctly. If a horse understands what we want, they're most likely to give us the right answer. If you're making what you want the horse to do feel easy to the horse, they are more likely to give you the right answer. And often when there's a problem, it's usually miscommunication and the horse isn't quite understanding what we want, and that's where we have to not bulldoze through, but rethink and take a step back and work out how can I make what I'm asking my horse to do easy for them to give me the right answer. Fitness is also a really important factor, especially as horses develop and become more advanced. For their longevity, I think often it's easy to think, oh, my horse is older, I've got to do less, or you get into a real habit of sort of protecting them too much. And actually, the fitter a horse, the more in their comfort zone they are when they're working at their peak, the longer the horse is going to last and the longer the horse is going to be able to do its job happily. So fitness work, and that doesn't mean drilling them for hours in the arena. It means doing all of those cross-training exercises, canter work on the canter track, treadmill work, whatever you've got available to you, find the variety, cross-train and get the fitness of a horse. If they're fit, they're going to be able to last longer and do their job happily. And I have to say, we've had quite a few horses come up through the levels at our yard, and they've still been going strong, age 17, 18. Alf, my Olympic medal horse, was 17 at the London 2012 Olympics. On the third day of competition, he was still having a buck when I warmed him up because he was super fit. And that's what made him able to still really enjoy what he was doing. And I think if they're at their limit, at Grand Prix level fitness-wise, and it is hard work for them, then it's much harder for them to enjoy it and look effortless, and that's what it's all about. Without boring everyone about the scales of training, they are at the fundamentals of how we should train, any type of horse, any type of whatever level you're at. If you're riding with the scales of training at the forefront of your mind, you're not going to go wrong. For me, when I'm producing a young horse, it's all about balance, essentially. Keeping a horse in balance, producing a horse to be able to hold themselves in self-carriage is essentially teaching a horse balance, giving a horse the strength and coordination to stay in balance throughout transitions within the pace, throughout the various movements that we later expect of them when they're at high-level dressage, is the key. And if my horse is in balance and I'm in balance on top of my horse, then that is, you're onto a winner, really. It means that your aids can be less visible, you can be much softer in the hand, and everything looks a lot more easy and harmonious. When I'm riding a very young horse, obviously they haven't learnt any movements yet. The main thing I'd be working on is transitions and balance appropriate to that horse's age. So very little sitting trot, if any at all, only sitting trot according to how, when I introduce sitting trot, it will be according to how the horse's back can cope with it. So if I'm riding a 4-year-old and it's going really well towards the end of a session and they're feeling really nice, then I might sit for 10, 15 meters. As soon as I feel the back struggle a little bit, I go back to rising, praise the horse. Maybe sit again for 5, 10 meters, go rising. I introduce it very slowly. And when I sit, I certainly don't sit deep. I sit very light. My body will be upright, not tilting forwards over the withers, because obviously I want my horse to learn to be able to come up out of the withers, so I don't want to be squashing the withers, but also I'm certainly not leaning off the back of the horse. As the horse becomes more developed, maybe more towards 5, 6, 7 years of age, I'll be able to sit in a little bit stronger, I'll take a little bit more influence. But again, I want my horse to learn to go into a contact and learn to start to develop collection and self-carriage without me holding them in it. It's all about, I can squeeze at the end of the rein without pulling back on the reins. If my horses, and especially my dressage horses, tend to be giants, I like them to be able to listen to, just a shift in my weight and a squeeze of the rein. If I'm having to hold a big horse in collection, it's not going to look pretty and it's going to be exhausting, and it's, then my reins are no longer available to give the details of the actual movement. So finding the balance and the self-carriage is all about teaching the horse to be there and do the work for you, and not you holding and pressing the horse into it. When a horse develops strength flexibility and self-carriage of their own accord and learns to do this with the engine at the back end, the hind legs really doing their job, a horse will gradually develop bigger, bouncier paces without you having to chase it into them. And that's the real fun in developing horses. And the horse that I'm riding today is very much in transformation of his paces at the moment, not because I'm having to chase him into that bigger trot, but because he's just starting to really feel his own power and strength. And that's such a cool feeling to have. This horse is a 7-year-old homebred, so he's very used to my system and way of going. When he comes in the school, when he starts his warm-up, he starts in the way I would start a baby, a long stretch, long and low, very free. I'm not taking very much influence on him. I'm just letting him be. If he's a little bit crooked, he can be a little bit crooked. As long as he's not running away from me and he's in balance, he's having a stretch. This is him just being allowed to move, as a young horse should. And then as I build onto the second phase of the warm-up, he'll be going more age appropriately. I'll start to put a little bit more balance into him. I'll start to shift the center of gravity a little bit more to the back so that he's starting to come up a little bit in front, sit a little bit, swing under with his hind legs, and I'll start to put him together a little bit and take a little bit more influence also when I start to sit a little bit heavier in the canter or go sitting trot a little bit more. I start to feel him come up and just start to go into self-carriage a bit more. And then, although he's 7, he's quite advanced for his age, and how I would then move on as he develops into more and more of an advanced horse, I will start to take more influence over his trot. I will sit a little bit deeper. I'm not going to start leaning off the back of him, but I do want my shoulders just a fraction behind my hips so that I'm giving his front end space to come up and allowing his hind legs to really come through and under. And it's really important that if you want your horse to go in self-carriage and in a certain outline and in a certain sort of uphill tendency, that you sit with that tendency yourself. And then in the canter the same, I will start to sit a little bit deeper, allow the front end and squeeze a little bit with my thighs so that I'm using my seat and my body to help collect him and bring him into self-carriage so that my hands aren't pulling back. My hands are connected to him. There's a connection, there's a good contact. He's pulling positively forwards into my hand without being rude or bullying, but also it's a very soft feeling. He's not strong. If I give with my hands forwards, he's not trying to run away. He's staying in his balance. He's staying in his own self-carriage. And that's essentially the ultimate goal when you have collection, that you have a horse on your seat, your hands are independent, you can give with your hands, the horse doesn't speed up, you take the connection again and everything feels smooth and easy. And then you can start riding your movements and it's like you're just drawing smooth lines on a page. It's up to you where you go with that and what you ride on that day. But the important thing is that the horse is giving you a swinging feeling under the back, because that means if a horse is comfortable to sit to, it usually means they're swinging nicely over the back. If a horse isn't comfortable to sit to, even if they haven't got a massive trot, a horse should be comfortable to sit to if they've got a soft and relaxed back. And then a nice feeling in the hand. Some horses have a lighter contact, some horses naturally have a stronger contact, but within that spectrum, within that scale, it should be a nice feeling in the hand, and you should be able to have a really lovely feeling underneath you, and that's the ultimate goal of producing a dressage horse. All my horses start lateral work quite early, even if it's just a little bit of shoulder fall, a little bit of a leg yield, and all my advanced horses will start their sort of second stage of warm-up with some lateral work from shoulder in to travers, renvers transitions. I use that lateral work to build up that flexibility right from the start of their career all the way through to the point where they're advanced Grand Prix horses, because I think it's a great way to feel where is my horse stiff? Have I got my horse underneath me? When I put my inside leg on, is he really bending around my inside leg, or is he just slipping out of the outside shoulder? Small circles. Is my horse tracking up, or is he swinging out, or is he curling in? Great ways of just checking, have I really got my horse on my aids, or am I slightly cheating, or is he slightly cheating? So lateral work, it's a really fundamental part of how I like to keep my horses supple. Not just, bending the horse left and right in the neck. That doesn't really tell me if it's supple. I've got to feel give from the feeling in my hand all the way around the horse to the tailbone. I've got to feel softness and bending in the whole horse, not just the flexion in the neck. And that throughness from the hind leg. If my horse is stepping through from behind and I have a nice feeling in the hand, then teaching him the next levels and the movements tends to be pretty straightforward. So I think for me, the fundamental sort of thing that I start with them is that lateral work and feeling that suppleness in the whole body of the horse. And I do that already at a fairly young age, even if I'm just rising trot and in canter, just having them long and low. As long as I can feel a bit of give each way in the body, then that's a good starting point. And then I'll just progress that as the horse gets more advanced and take that throughout their career. And on a day where I'm not really working on movements, I'll just work on a little bit of that sort of suppling work. Are they soft and giving each way in a travers, renvers, changeover? And if they are, then that feels good. And that's something that if I know I've got the horse feeling supple in both sides of their body, then I can make sure I maintain that suppleness in each movement, even in the really advanced movements, in the changes, in the pirouettes, in the zigzags. And if at any point I lose that suppleness, that's usually where a movement starts going wrong. And instead of then just repeating that movement over and over and trying to improve it and thinking, why is he suddenly not doing it? It's again, one of those things where you have to take a step back, use our brains and think, okay, he's not pirouetting well to the right. I need to go back to the basics, some transitions, maybe some lateral work, suppling the horse in that direction and the other direction. And usually you'll find where the sticking point is. And when you've improved that, you go back to the pirouette and suddenly it's easy again. Or often it's also about where we are. We're so busy trying to fix something that we maybe haven't noticed that we've slipped out to the outside or are sitting out of balance with the horse with our shoulders. Maybe we think we're pushing that way, but our shoulders have gone the wrong way. So again, really taking stock of, am I in balance? Is my horse in balance? Am I in balance with my horse? Am I sitting in a direction that's making it easy for my horse to do what I want? Or am I sitting in a place that's making it harder for my horse to do what I want? And we usually uncover the answer quite quickly when we take a step back and have a think. And that's what I would really encourage people to do when they're producing young horses and when they're riding an older horse that they want to keep going for a long time and enjoy for a long time. Always take a look at yourself. Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Have I made it easy for my horse to understand? And then, then the journey should be fun.